Welcome back to ShopDog-Garage. This won't be a very long video, I don't think. But neighbor Jeff is bringing his parents' Buick by, give it a once-over. So, I don't remember what year it is, but I know it has a Northstar. So, definitely expect the oil pan to leak. You know, not at the pan usually at that upper girdle. So he should be coming around any moment now. I heard the gate alarm. It's a nice balmy 58 in here because I came in here last night and turned the heat back up. So we're just waiting on Jeff. And while he's coming in, I need to get some stuff turned on and kind of let you guys know that this project may slow down for a week or two. I'm just burned out, and it really is ice fishing season. Plus, I know Harlan's pretty busy, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. For those that don't know, that's what we call the black car. That's 68 convertible. That's the Impala. That's the SS 427, and that's the dog sled. And this is a Super Buick, which is what I always call these Buicks. I don't know if this one's a LaCrosse or a Lucerne. It's one of those things. Come on, Jeff. But this is his mom and dad's car. It's got a slightly squeaky belt. Go back a little. Yeah, he wasn't watching, so yeah, let's roll her back just there. Perfect. Let's get her up in the air and give her an inspection. Let's pop the sound cover off, and there you go, a Northstar. Let me grab a little rag real quick and let's see what we got here. Yeah, okay, so at least it's not coolant, but it is oil. I'm gonna have to figure out where that's coming from. I think the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and get some of this plastic trim off so that we can inspect a little closer. We'll be right back. Okay, we're slowly taking stuff out of our way, but we're not wiping or touching anything because that's how you inspect. Don't get your greasy mitts all over everything until you're ready. That's crazy because those are printed sideways. It made it look like the belt was sideways. You heard when it came in that she was chirping a little bit, so I bet she's due for a belt and maybe at least one pulley, but we'll take a look. I want to follow this first though, because you'll notice, you see it, yeah, in fact you can see it right here. Well, maybe you guys can see it. Let me zoom you in. Okay, see on the valve cover gasket right here how it's wet? It's wet the whole way around. So that's definitely going to be some of that. Trying to figure out the reasoning up here. This is very, very shiny up here for some reason. I wonder, no, because it's not wet here. So I'll keep kind of looking. You know, it's just always making the decision on what's worth fixing on an old car and what's worth living with. So as soon as it cools down a little bit, we're going to check the oil level because we know how many miles ago it was full. So we're just looking, see what doesn't look right. Now remember, on these Northstars, this freaking water pump belt on the back is a nightmare. So hopefully that looks good because those suck. But at this point, we're just looking for problems. We're going to pick the car up in a little bit and look underneath. It's like, yeah, that valve cover gasket on this side, I don't know if you guys can see down in there. That one is also wet. So both valve cover gaskets are leaking. At least into the valley. I don't know. I would assume if they're leaking in the valley, they're going to be leaking on the sides. Coming around the front here. Checking around the power steering reservoir. Looking for leaks. A lot of times some of these lines start to swell and crack a little. So start checking for those. And that's not just Northstar specific. Okay, something used to route here. And somebody did some work. And it didn't go back there. Yeah, see, we've definitely got a weep down on this hose down here, so I'll check that out in a minute. And obviously the valve cover, the whole valve cover gasket's leaking on that side and on that side. So yeah, we were correct on that. Valve cover gaskets are leaking. And then when you look down here, you'll see a little bit of moisture on the front cover for the timing. But like I said, with older cars, you got to triage what's worth fixing and what's worth living with. So we'll kind of start figuring. I'm wondering if this rear one is worth fixing. I think what we'll do is clean it up a little bit and then inspect it again in a month. But we'll see. We'll come up with a plan. So let's pick the car up real quick. All right, car's up. Okay, look at the rusty brake lines. Awesome. Those are always my favorite. If you even breathe on those, they will leak. Yeah, so those are going to become an issue at some point. And remember, this is Minnesota, so this is all common. We expect that. I'm just looking. Okay, I don't like that. There is water coming off this radiator right here. Well, wait a minute. He was just driving in slush, though. Yeah. That may not be coolant. Okay. Yeah, those brake lines are spooky. Not real impressed with those. Oh. Okay, the mount looks like a mount. Yeah, holy monkeys, yeah. Yep, told you. I knew that before we even looked at it. It was going to be leaking up here above the crankshaft. That is a giant job. So we got to find out how much oil it's leaking and live with it, because this car doesn't have the life in it to justify the expense and work to replace that. On the upside, all that oil blowing back means that a lot of this back here should be in good shape. Yo, look at these brake lines. Oh. Yeah, that's what's going to put this car in the junkyard right there. That's going to be the thing. Every brake line is completely destroyed because it's Minnesota and we have salt. This one's going to break soon. Okay. Alright. And let's come back over here. Yeah, so when we're looking here, I'm looking at the junctions right here to the rubber line, and then kind of looking at this side of the rubber line. We'll look at the other side later, but right now I don't see a bunch of cracking or pitting on the line. However, you'll see the way that's made. Remaking these is going to be an absolute nightmare. So let's check this side. Yeah, see the rubber line, the exterior of the rubber line looks fine. And to be fair, that's usually not your failure on these cars. So, boy, you can tell the aluminum from the steel. Alright, so let's kind of check. Yeah, getting rust on the fuel lines. Yeah, luckily gas tanks nowadays are plastic, but the pump isn't, and none of the fittings are. So, and then you've seen this on a few cars in my shop, where these brackets where fuel lines and brake lines go, that's where they rust. See that right there? That's where they rust, because moisture sits on top of that bracket. So this car is on the monitor for leaks, because sooner or later it's going to lose a brake line or a fuel line, and the fuel line brake is going to be right there. That is totally where it's going to leak, because that's going to be the hardest to change. Yeah, you can see the rust here and the rust here. Okay, let's look at the steering rack. Yeah, unfortunately, these are usually pretty rusty and crusty here in Minnesota on cars that get driven in the winter. I'm really having a hard time telling if that's a power steering leak or if that's oil from the engine on the rack. It's quite possibly just oil from the engine, though. Yeah, that line is not in its bracket, and I don't know why. Yeah, it shouldn't be routed where it is. So that's been changed over the years. That must have been that clip we saw that somebody didn't reuse. So, okay, CV seal looks fine on that side. Trying to get on this side and see this one. So that looks fine up there. Just got to figure out how to get your light in, because there's a lot going on. Okay, yeah, the tranny isn't leaking up there. It's just crazy because these trannies are usually a problem. Yeah, that boot's dry. That's good. So, yeah, it's mostly what we figured. And all this smog stuff down here usually fails because of where it is, and salt and stuff packs up. What do? Alright. Obviously, that's an angry mess that we do not want to touch. So leave that alone. That catalytic converter is going to be hard to steal. And, yeah, it's a Northstar. So, okay, let's take some look at a couple other things. So what we're doing right now is burning through some brake clean and blowing things off. We're not moving anything or touching anything. We're just starting to kind of blow off some of the old oil, because we're going to have to determine, based on the usage and the customer and everything, what makes sense to do. And I think one of the first things we should do is try to pull a lot of the wet oil off. I don't really care about dry stuff, but anything that's been wet, I want to clean off. And then in a week or two, we will reevaluate. Now, this car doesn't get driven very far very often, so most of these leaks are just going to be stationary leaks, but those are what we need to know about, because they're still doing it, whether you're driving it or not. May look at rerouting that line, may not. I haven't decided yet. But I want to find out if this is oil, power steering fluid, what all is happening. So we're just going to burn a few cans in here. The other thing we want to do is we definitely are going to look into doing brake lines. So these should be bubble fittings. We're probably not going to route them factory wise, but these are 3/16 lines, so there's no reason we couldn't get a couple tubes of NiCop and go crazy for a couple days, because the problem is, to do it factory wise, an awful lot of stuff has to come out, when really all I need to do is find the brake controller, which something tells me is up here. You guys can probably see it, I cannot. We just got to get from that and run all these lines. So you can see these 3 lines here, they don't have to route that way. I can route them however I need to. They probably still would come down, and we would probably pull wheels and play with that, but we would get them back there. So obviously one goes to that wheel, and one goes to that wheel, and one goes to that wheel, and the one for this one probably goes around the top. I bet every one of them's bad. I am okay with letting the fuel line ride. If the fuel line starts leaking and the car stalls, we can deal with that, and then we'll do that. But I think the brake line is the one that we're probably going to be the most concerned about. And then I hate seeing this in Minnesota. See these wires here? These are always going to become a problem sitting out like that. But I really don't want to go moving them and tugging on them, because whatever circuit they run right now is working. So, yeah. Unfortunately, this is what the Rust Belt does to stuff. And there's nothing you can do about it. Alright, so we're going to keep cleaning. Go open a new can. Okay, she is about a half quart low, but when I'm looking down inside, I don't see any real wear on the cam gears, and you can't see much on the follower, but it's the color I would expect it to be. The big thing is I don't see a bunch of metal or plastic floating around anywhere, and I don't see a bunch of nasty buildup. So it hasn't been overheated and burned the oil. And that's one of the things that you worry about with these cars, because even though they touted them for being amazing about running with no coolant or whatever, yeah, these things overheat in a heartbeat and warp the heads. So you got to be real careful. Okay, we found the brake controller. It is down there. And honestly, if I had to do that work for the brakes, I think the best thing would be to just pull this grill and drain the cooling, pull the radiator, because trying to bend all that and get down in there, that could absolutely blow. Maybe you might be able to pull this air box. May be able to get some room doing that, because this tube, there must be an air pump down here. Yeah, you're still fighting this lower rad hose though. But yeah, so we'll have to make a plan on that. You know, Chinese shifts, car stops, everything goes. You can see we got coolant. You know, yeah, she's leaky and rusty. We ran and got another case of brake clean. We're not going to go too crazy up here. We know where the leaks are up here, but the areas we sprayed, and it's been 40 minutes, an hour. You know, we haven't been in a big hurry. We're going to pick the car up now and see if there's any obvious leaks. Okay, based on the drip there and the fact that we can see a drip coming here, that is probably from when I was brake cleaning. I think some probably sat on this bracket and is finally coming down. Yeah, look at that. That is thick. So, yeah, and I didn't really spray in here all that good yet. Mostly what we're trying to do is make sure that all the fluid is just oil. Conveniently, it wasn't that low, and it's not exactly that hard to change this oil, so I think oil changes are probably going to start happening here a little more often. So, yeah, bummer. These brake lines are kind of iffy. I'm not a big fan. So, no, gotta let him know what's what. While we were buying brake clean, we bought some more of the little clips that he needed, because I didn't have the weird ones that go on the radiator support. They've got a weird length to them. So, we got some of those. And, yeah. We'll go from there. We should have her down here shortly. I'm going to have Jeff start it up. We just checked tires. Not super impressed with the tread life on the rear tires. And depending on how long this car is going to be in operation, may want to consider brakes when we do the brake lines. You know, it really just depends on how much longer this car is going to be in service. Yeah, battery's a little low. Sure you heard that, but I knew that one of the complaints was a squeak, and here's a little bit of Windex, which is a nice ammonia. These stupid tops. Give me a second, I'll be right back. Okay, that's belt or pulley related, not, you know, the faces of the pulley or the belt itself is causing that, or something's out of line, which is not uncommon on these push style GM power steering pumps. So if we look at this pulley, it should be flush with the face of that on the pump, and it may not be, because that definitely seems to be our squeak, is very localized. So I think what that is actually this pulley needs to move back in a little bit. I'm going to get a screwdriver and see if I can clean that end. I'll be right back. Okay, so the area I'm talking about, let me get some light on it for you. And don't try this at home. Okay, so I'm coming in pretty straight-ish. There, finally hitting that. Yeah, so this pulley is out a little bit. But let's be fair, I think this pump leaks as well, and this belt is probably a little on the toasty side. So there's a combination of factors. So If the squeak really bothers them, I'm going to have to recommend a new belt. And if the belt's off, I think you're pulling this power steering pump. Yeah, the second I put a little bit of ammonia on the belt, it gets quiet. And notice, in fact, you can see it's a little offset. So, yeah, that's not uncommon on these cars. That pulleys get a little bit out of alignment. Belt gets a little older, starts to chirp. A new belt would probably solve that, but hard to know. ShopDog says, not sure about this. So when I checked the battery, even though we've started it a few times today, up at that starter stud up there, it was only reading 12.1. And technically that's quite a bit low. This should read 12.6 if it's fully charged, roughly. But remember, there's going to be some loss. Ooh, mouse house. That's not uncommon. This is a Doco battery. That's interesting, because I seriously doubt he would have gone and bought one. So let me see if I can find the date code on it. I found the date code. It's right there. This battery is 12 years old in Minnesota. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to start showing its age a little bit. So, yeah, just one more thing for them to start thinking about, depending on how long this car needs to last and how reliable it needs to be. From that, ShopDog says that we have investigated the car. We know what's what. We told Jeff, and Jeff's going to go find out what everybody wants to do and what the plans for the car are. Something scared ShopDog. You know, for a big dog, he sure is a chicken. So, yeah, and like I said, I'm not super stoked about these tires in the back. The fronts are okay. They're not great. So, those are also on my list, and you can tell, Minnesota, what do you do? But for a 2006, I mean, I don't know what more you're expecting here. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. ShopDog says he's feeling a little better. See? It's leaving.